this talk is going to be about Hashcat. I need a quick show of hands of how many of you guys actually know what Hashcat is? All right, oh, thank God. I don't have too much like very introductory material. This is more like you know how to use it, you know a little bit about the attack types. This is going to be like upping your game up with some nicer tools, other resources out there, different attack approaches that we use internally for all kinds of goodies that we usually find on internal, sometimes external pen tests. Kind of go from there. Let's see if this works. I don't think the audio worked. Well, the laptop will do the trick, but 70 show fan over here, so I was like, my wife looked at this PowerPoint before I started presenting, and she was like, I had a picture of Packers cheese hat, and I like cheese, so I was gonna make it a little cheesy, and she's like, don't do that. It's like, dude, I live near Philly, and everyone's like, cheesesteak, cheesecake, you know, it's fine, man. Like, but she told me to take it away, so if you guys would have thought that was funny, I'll let her know. So start things off. So who I am, why should you even listen to me about this, you know, Hashcat stuff? So my the full name is actually Vitaliy, but over the years, it seems to kind of vary between how clients use the name. The shortened version is just Tally, but all of these are actually what I got on the email replies from the clients or just client communications. The most common one is Vitality because it's an actual word, and that's actually what I think is related to my name. I'm full of life, which I disagree with, but and then on the further end is Kelly because I'm not sure what Panera Bread came up with, but I was the only person ordering food, and I said Tally, and that's where Kelly is. So it's a bit of a range, but pretty much anything is accepted. Except Kelly. I don't think I would respond to Kelly, but pretty much any kind of variation of Tally, Vitaliy. Tality, I think Matt calls me Towels all the time. So Towley, actually I forgot to include the South Park one, which is Towley, which is okay, I guess. So that's kind of just, you know, me. So what I do professionally, I'm a director of adversary ops. I know that sounds fancy, but I am still on the execution side of things. So I do some of the pen testing work, web app work. So I'm in the weeds. I'm not paper pushing. I'm not, you know, project manager or anything like that. So I'm also an in-house password cracking resource. So all of our, I guess, consultants, when they're on site or doing any kind of testing, whenever we get any kind of hash, they sort of just forward it my way, and then I take care of it usually for them. If they want to go do it themselves, we do have instructions on how to do stuff, but most people are like, hey, I'm doing other actual testing stuff, so can you drop this in for me? I serve as like a technical resource as well, so I've been doing this for about 11 years now. It's a little bit of a mix between OffSec stuff for about 7 years, and then 3 to 4 years of like working at MSSP doing detection engineering. So I worked with SIMs, EDRs, all the fun security tools, and now I know how to defeat them. So that was the whole point of that, you know, learn what's on the other side. A couple of examples of like the recent events is I like to figure out the easiest and silliest things that work. It's not necessarily you have to like cook up things from scratch to make things happen. For example, we do assume breach scenarios with clients, and a lot of the time they put us on this like restricted box, no local admin, right? You start off as like a typical user. We figure out how to just like run Kali without admin. It's like awesome. So we just bring our own freaking operating system on top of Windows. Can be slow depending on the hardware or VM you're on, but that works. Hey, EDR is getting in the way of blocking, you know, SAM LSA dump, LSAS dumps. LSAS is a little tricky. Can't reveal all the secrets about that one, but SAM and LSA, like the funniest thing is like, you try to do remote dumping, doesn't work, but if you just like RDP to the box and you're like, hey, I want to back up the registry, it works. So you just have to do a bit of manual, but you don't have to write things from scratch. I mean, you can modify and pack it. Again, I do the stupid scenarios, so just hang with me here when I go through Hashcat. It might sound silly, but it's like, it works. It's just makes it easier for me not to, you know, make things from scratch. Yeah, I think I already said 11 years of InfoSec. And the only other thing that I want to note is I use GitHub as like my search engine. I find lots of cool goodies on there that I don't have to reinvent the wheel for, right? There is tons of resources out there. I mean, there's GitLab, Gitbucket, there's other resources. I just say GitHub, but anything Git related, any kind of code repositories, all goodies are there. You can find things that you might be like, hey, I need something to do this. Oh, I'm going to have to write a script. It's like, somebody already did it. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And you're going to see some of the stuff that I'm going to like share like GitHub links with you. For like the word list generation, there's tools out there that people already wrote for you. So it's like, why would I rewrite the same thing? Visual representations over the years of just kind of what I did. I loved RFID scanning era. It's getting a little bit better now. Mouse jack, if anyone got to use that, you felt like you're in a movie, like, whoa, I'm popping things remotely. Got to dress up as a nurse and give advice to people. I hope it was good advice. In hospitals, if you just blend in wearing scrubs or something, nobody's going to question you. Got to meet McAfee before he, tragically passed away. He was a really cool dude. Got to test ATMs for a bunch of different banks. Got to pop a bunch of, I think that was dumping SAM and LSAN secrets. That's my favorite reg command. That was on like a printing station at a university. So walked around, found a printing station, broke the kiosk mode. I was like, all right, we got one hash to try everywhere. We're driving on the right, and then there's the guy who's recording me actually is under the table. That was the actual one time we did get arrested. So I was like, I've felt the handcuffs on me, and I was like, okay, this is real. So just to kind of get your representation. Question?
Oh, did you take the picture while you were?
This is right before, I'm like, once the police showed up, I'm like camera down. I was like this. I was like, the thing is in my pocket, like, because I saw what happened to him, because he was on the floor, so they just like pinned him down, so that was not cool. I was like, I'm gonna snap if they do that to me. I'm a twig, right? So maybe that was someone's idea about doing that. So literally his words, I kid you not. So this guy's, the decision-making process in this one's a little, questionable, but it was a fun one. At the end, I think the police officers did enjoy our tour because we walked them through. We walked through our tools of like everything that we did, how we did it. They were really happy that we gave them like the tool that we used for like the door to keep it open, stuff like that. Anyway, that's just like a snapshot of like 11 years. So like I do have experience. I'm not just a random person. And again, OffSec and about a couple years of just defensive stuff in the SOC. For those who want my alphabet soup, here you go. I don't really, I don't put this after my name. I particularly like CISSP here because that was on my exam and that was in the training material. Does anyone know what that means? It's lit. There you go. So another victim, the ISC squared claims another one. But these are basically like, a lot of people starting out, it's like Sec Plus, Net Plus, A Plus. I started out with a help desk, so A Plus was like, hey, I'll just take it. It was, I didn't really find it fun learning about, what would you call it, like what the names of the resolutions are. Like some of it was really stupid. Net Plus I actually really enjoyed because I figured out like, oh, subnetting DNS, like it's a pretty solid one. CEH, this was before OSCP was a thing. Again, government likes it. I don't think the industry really likes it. And then all the other ones are your typical, your pen tester stuff. And then because I've been doing it for 11 years, I kind of had to get CISSP. There was a whole different story of why I did it, because a client questioned basically my credentials for performing a vuln scan. I kid you not. So I was like, you know what, I'll get it. And then you had to get endorsed for it. So I asked the guy who questioned me, and then, wait, it gets better. He said his lapsed like 5 years ago. So like people are nuts. Like I got it. I was like, all right, it's over with. So how did this talk come into to become a talk, from what happened? So I enjoy word driving. I don't know if anybody else in the audience raise their hand. We're driving, we're walking, we're flying, whatever word verb you want to add, that's cool. I don't do the traditional mapping out stuff. I do submit it to, thank you, yes, I do submit some data to Wiggle. I'm not anywhere near the leaderboard or anything like that. I mostly capture PSKs and then try to crack them. So the goal for me is literally just password cracking for fun. Just to see, I don't know where where the AP came from or whatever. I mean, it's in my general area within 10 miles, but I don't go back and try to connect, for the record, for fun, not for malicious purposes. When I when I moved, I got FIOS. I saw this password. I don't know if this is very visible or not, but they basically use like a pretty long string for a password. And I was like, they used to use like really terrible ones, but I'm like, damn, this is actually like pretty long and hard to crack. And I thought about it, I'm like, what can I do to, it's a word with a digit appended to either first, second, or third word, and there's dashes in between. And you can get samples of this on eBay. I mean, you could just search for like AP for sale for Verizon. You can find other examples to get an idea of what kind of words are used, where the positions and stuff like that. You can figure that out. But I was like, whoa, that's, that is, how many characters is this one? That was 8, 12, 13, 14. So there's like 15 or 16 characters. I think they range up to 18. So again, that's not a traditional like password dictionary would get you with like a rule set. So this is how it got like my brain going on all kinds of weird stuff to do to things. And I did solve this with the picture on the right. So I broke it down into smaller word lists. So I broke down a word list with a digit, with like 3-letter word, 4-letter word, append a digit. And then you generate a larger list of 2 of those. So you basically smash one of them next to another one. And then you do an A1 to the third one. If that makes sense. The A1 attack to the bigger file set. That takes about a week on like 24090. So it's a long time. So it's not exactly achievable on like smaller hardware, but doable if you really want to get in. And most people do end up using these because it's easy to just scan the QR to connect and stuff like that. So a lot of people, let's say I got 2 in my area, but I only, again, a week-long time. It took like 3 days for one and 4 for another. So again, you're going to be running really hot GPUs. Let me just tell you that. So what I want to teach you during this presentation is basically doing interesting stuff to it that, taking all the tools out there that are already there, taking the materials out there. Again, you don't have to generate your own rules. Like there's rule sets for days online, and they're out there. And a lot of people still end up using, like when I talk to some of our, I guess my friends who work in other places in the industry, it's like, yeah, we just run like whatever, like the dive rule set or the dead one or hobo rule set, whatever the popular ones are. And it's like, there's so many other ones you can try, but also there's other, I guess, approaches that you can use. So I'll cover a little bit about the hardware, kind of the current situation, then we're gonna go into what's gonna sound kind of weird, but this presentation was put together when my wife was watching like Nightmare Kitchen. So it's kind of food themed and cooking themed. So I'm gonna refer to things, I'm gonna have like a little what is what to kind of make sense of it. But like the cooking utensils is like word lists and rules and stuff. So hang in for a few minutes, I'll explain. And then again, we'll go through a bunch of different stuff that I came up with. It's nothing too crazy. It's, again, just using what's out there. You don't have to go crazy. There's no math involved. I know people do statistical analysis and stuff like that for prefixes, suffixes. That's cool. That's already out there that you can use. Try my best not to screw up. Already done, hopefully. And then at the end, I have like a little password trivia. So for those who come, whoever gets me the answers first, I have a little prize for you. So if you stay till the end, I guess. All right, so this is, yeah. The kitchen is the actual hardware, so your fancy GPUs. We're going to look at some pictures of what the kitchens look like. Most of them look like crypto mining stuff, to my knowledge now. It used to be server chassis, but that is expensive because you need to water cool pretty much the 4090s because they're really fat, and you have to pretty much take off the, I guess, the cooling mechanism that it comes with to even get it into the chassis. Cooking utensils, again, utilities, operating system. You can use Linux, you can use Windows. I don't judge. We run Windows. I'm not afraid to admit it. We ran Linux for a year. We swapped over just because it was easier to use for things. Again, no right or wrong answer. You might lose some performance because you're running a Go OS. I'm not a purist. Like, I really am not squeezing all the performance out. Like, as long as it's like fairly good, we're good. Ingredients. We're gonna look for ingredients online. We're gonna look for ingredients in the real world, and we're gonna look at ingredients of growing our own ingredients. Hashcat is gonna be the food critic, so we're feeding Hashcat, and the Michelin stars, if the food critic's happy, is gonna give you the correct password. I know it's a little funny, but that's what the kind of setup is. So that's why the whole talk is, cooking for Hashcat. All right, so quick note on Michelin stars. So for those of you in consulting, you probably know about all the common things that you probably capture on the network. NetN TLMs, again, you run man-in-the-middle 6, responder, relay, whatever you're doing. NetN TLM1s if you're really lucky or if they have older systems. Kerberos goodies, still pretty popular. Hard to crack Kerberos goodies are becoming more common, and they're way slower. Cache domain creds, those I've gotten lucky recently with the older type, with the 1100. That was cool. 2100 is really, you got to get lucky, right? Those are really slow algorithms, so it takes, like, if you put a larger rule set, it'll take days. So it's you have to optimize it with a little bit of either pre-generating a larger word list or password list or using a smaller rule set. This one's my favorite, IPMI hashes. Does anyone hunt for these on a pen test? Do you guys know what this is? Yeah. So these are appliances on the network that have this management interface, basically. And the older version of like HP and Dell ILOs or whatever they're called, they still have the vulnerable protocol version where you can dump hashes. And these are awesome because these passwords that we crack with IPMI usually get us into non-AD things like backups, NFS, or is it NFS shared drives, which usually contain backups and all kinds of cool stuff. So it can be a shortcut to DA, basically. So definitely something that still pretty common to find. Occasional Word documents, because we think there's passwords in them. It's usually Excel or Word docs. And then NTLM hashes if we're doing any kind of NTDS audit or we just need to, get the password because we can't pass the hash. And then finally, that is related to my Word driving stuff. Anytime we see pre-shared keys, you gotta try to crack it to see if we can get on like the guest network, or sometimes that is the corporate network. Hopefully it's disconnected from the rest of the internal network, but it's 2024 and there was at least one client that did not fully disconnect that from the internal network. All right, so let's do the kitchen setup for the cooking. The first line speaks for itself. Pretty much everything's expensive, right? So GPUs are like, the 4090s are like 2K. They're more than 2K, I don't know. Depending on the version that you get, depending on the model, I guess. So building out a rig with multiple GPUs, your big investment is just GPU money, right? So 2K a card is gonna add up pretty quick. So like I've seen some pictures that people are like flexing like 8. I was like, 8 4090s. And I was like, plus the rest. I was like, you're in 20+K territory just for that. So I was like, I work at a smaller company, so our budget is definitely not 20K for the crackers. So we're like, okay. The picture on the right, I don't know if it's hard to see or not, but this was like the rig that started it all. It was just my gaming PC, and I couldn't fit another card in, so I just popped the cards out, or I popped the second card out and just put it on top because it was overheating inside. But that's how it started. I was just like trying to crack hashes before having a dedicated one. It was a crypto craze a couple years ago. Now it's AI, so everybody's buying out GPUs for that type of stuff. Not necessarily RTX, but I would say the H1s or the A4000, 6000 series, whatever the current NVIDIA ones are. Everybody in our industry still relies on the consumer ones, so we want the RTX gaming, basically gaming Founder Edition cards, doesn't matter. The A6000 or like the professional cards, they're way too like expensive. They're basically like, could be like 10K per card. So it's like, who's using that? Unless you're, this talk does not cover spinning up AWS instances. You can totally do that. I think we have a video on YouTube about it, so you can check that out. If you want to spin up AWS and use those resources, we ran into a problem around COVID times because all of them were taken. I was like, how are we supposed to crack a password? We can't even spin up instances. So that's how, there's a blog on, we built our own internal with a couple of 3090 TIs, and still rocking. There's a couple pictures, I think, coming up. Again, if you do an internal build, like in a chassis, you got water cooling, you have other issues to worry about, like the power supply has to be crazy to support all that. So most of the rigs, again, in my opinion, the easy, cheaper build is a mining rig, basically looking like an open case. can add fans to it, but space them out and they're good. You don't have to water cool it. It does get really warm though. Best aero was 1080 in my opinion, to be honest. The fan blower design, you could stick all of them. You didn't have to do anything special in a chassis. They didn't use a lot of power. That was you know, the card. We're now at 4000 series, so it's been a couple of generations, but I still miss the 1080. I think like that was the Brutalis era. Like there's companies that spun up that built crackers for people. So the only other thing that I think you worry about is just storage. If you have large word lists or you play around with stuff, I just recommend just lots of fast storage for access generating things, stuff like that. And then because I have one of, let's say like one of these at home, in summertime it sucks. It does heat up, and in the wintertime it's actually pretty nice because it's a little portable space heater if you can put it in a corner. So this is our actual corporate one. There's an AC next to it because it's in a smaller room and we have to cool it. So we kind of put it together that's like, it's good enough to get cooled by the AC. And then the little space heater is in the corner in my house. The only thing about running those in your house is depending on when your house was built. Mine was like the 60s, so the power is not great, so I can't put too much load. So you're going to be tripping breakers if you're in a house that has too many things on the line that you're plugging into. Yeah, if you were judging my cabling, you can kind of see my Plex server here on the left. It is, I know, right? Give me all the hate. And then that was my build back in like 2017 of like, I think that was the era of like mining ETH. I literally had to use like a milk crate and like, I didn't have anything else to put like the cart underneath the cart, so I used like a paper towel roll thing inside. So if it works, dude, if it works, it works. Like don't worry about it. So I'm not very good at cable management, as you can see, but nothing caught fire or anything else. So I looked up through Twitter. I'm not crediting any specific account because I forgot to note it down, but I do remember that one at the bottom. You see that one looks fancy, right? It does have like 8 4090s or something. So that's another bigger security company that I think built that one. So I'm like, if the budget permits, you can get a nice looking one for sure. But most of the other ones, if you look, I mean, they have better cable management than me, but they're built on basically what is a crypto mining chassis. Just open, give it some fans, put it in a cool place, hopefully, and you're good to go. The utensils, I think I mentioned, we do run Windows. Linux is totally fine. It's great. We ran it for a year. The hardware we chose, which was like Threadripper, I think, it had weird issues with the Linux distro that we chose. So for whatever reason, it had issues, and I was sick of troubleshooting it at times, and it would reboot occasionally on me. So I was like, I can't do this. Migrated to Windows. It's fine. Got some extra goodies on Windows like overclocking utilities. We usually don't overclock. We actually manage the fan curves on that, so it's actually pretty efficient to spin up once it gets too hot. I usually don't ever overclock. I might even underclock a little bit just to make it, just to not wear and tear on it as much, because from performance perspective, I would say you're getting a little bit more, of course, but is it really worth it if your card is like 100 degrees? Question. You know, it's arguable, but from my perspective, it's not really worth it. For all the Linux things, I just have WSL installed, so I still get all the Linux goodies to run, you know, sort or whatever I need is there on Windows anyway. It's Windows 10, not Windows 11. I don't know if I'm going to be ready to move to Windows 11 with what they're doing, but for now it's on Windows 10, and we'll see what happens. We'll adjust accordingly. So let's start with looking at some cooking utensils that we're using. First one, WikiRater. Anybody used this tool before? Thank you. Yeah. So again, not a lot of people know that these things exist, but what this tool does is it basically takes backup indices of Wikipedia articles and chops up the word list for you. So you have all the words on Wikipedia ready to go. So there's words on Wikipedia that are proper nouns and stuff like that that is not in the English dictionary, right? There's a lot of words that are also covered that are, you know, you can find another, they're not in the basic dictionaries that you find. It's similar to similar to, when I say similar, that's a loose term, to Urban Dictionary, right? You guys know what Urban Dictionary? Right, yeah. So stuff on there has cracked those passwords before, but you need to, again, get the stuff down and make a list out of it. So this is a great one to start with, just for like using Wikipedia as your source-based word list. Again, not password list, word list. Definitely check that one out. Another utensil is, again, mask processor. I think a lot of people who do use Hashcat regularly end up using it for generating some masks or generating whatever password list that they want specific to the situation, like the client name and then like every 4-digit combination. Again, you can use that. You can set up the same thing with rules in Hashcat, but it is an available tool. I love CUDB, which is a utility for Hashcat, which basically, if you think of a word, it chops it up like backward, forward, however you want. It's basically what I'm going to call it. It like makes a salad out of it. And then you can mix that salad and get some interesting passwords out of that as well. I've had actually good success with it, which I'll cover in a bit, using CUDB on, let's say, password lists that you're already using. So something like RockU, you can generate new password lists out of that using this utility. Again, they're on the GitHub and also just directly from Hashcat. You can grab them. More utensils for cooking. I think some of you will probably know these. So there's Pack 2, which is like a newer implementation, but it's missing some features. There's PipPal or PyPal, whatever you want to call it. I don't know actually the proper pronunciation. And Qul, which goes out there and scrapes your target's website, so whatever company you're testing, and just gives you extra words. If you do the wiki, you're pretty much good to go, to be honest. But it is an option for a smaller list if you're generating like a list just to target a specific client. Again, all of these are out there, so all you have to do is just, git clone, install, and you're good. Or sometimes just run them because they're already precompiled for you. But the analysis ones can be, again, used for generating your own masks if you want. If you have, if you've done enough pen testing and you have a bunch of passwords from NTDS dumps, other sources, whatever, you can start generating your own masks, your own rules, just based on those to kind of target that. But it's, again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of resources out there for you ready. The basic ingredients that most people use, bundled rules, and then infamous RockU. If somebody hasn't heard of RockU as a word list or a password list, you haven't used Hashcat probably or any cracking password stuff. So there's also CrackStation, there's hashes.org, which again, I think hashes.org got shut down in like 2021 or something like that, but they archived all the passwords online that you can find. Hashkiller. Again, there's a couple sources that like everybody has these and this is what they're using. And they're great. Like this is the proven recipe. It cracks passwords, you're good. But what if you want to up the game and do more damage, right? I love this one. So HashMob, if you want a really cool, I would say a really cool Discord to join, like a community, they have a lot of resources and a lot of the guys that publish some of the, I think the tests or the benchmarks for Hashcat, like Chicken Man. If you've heard the name, you definitely browse Twitter for it. It's I think he's one of the admins here, or he's definitely on there. But a lot of really smart people that compile a whole bunch of stuff for you and is basically like a little gamified community for, there's user submitted hashes, there's public ones from password data dumps. It's like they have everything all at once and they generate it for you in one of the HashMob word lists. There's about, I think they're like 17 gigs right now, which is actually pretty nice. Not for all things, but you will definitely get like things outside of, let's say, have you been pwned or something like that. There's this collection is really big, and I think it has a really good success rate for us for certain things. So there's HashMob. WeakPass is another one. If you tried Wi-Fi stuff, if you look up for any kind of WPA word list, this will take you here. They have like a 300 gig one or something like that, which is basically like 8 characters or more passwords, right? So because you can't really brute force them, because when I say brute force, you can't really go through the entire 8-character space for like a handshake just because it's a slow algorithm, right? So certain attacks don't apply to like every type of hash that you get. But what was it? Was it RockU 2021? Yeah, don't use that one. That one sucks. Even though it's a newer one, that one really sucks. Like I tried it and it didn't really get anything for me. I'm like, I'm sure this is like a conglomerate of passwords that have been dumped already. So I've probably picked it up on one of the other lists. But definitely, if you want to like, if you're out of ideas and stuff, like these lists are really huge in size, so you can't really give it big rules to apply or anything else to them. But you can definitely throw it all in and just see what happens. They do have smaller ones, which again, you can experiment. There's like a couple hundred different variations in there. Question?
Yeah. Do you know if anyone's grabbed the all one from here, like the 34 gigabyte one, and then
of course.
deduped it with the HashMob one yet?
I have not deduped between them, but that's something to keep in mind. Honestly, thank you for pointing that out. You're gonna, once you start accumulating all these goods, there's gonna be a lot of duplicates between them. So you can dedupe them. Most people don't. Most people just kind of feed but if you want to optimize and save some time, shave it off the cracking process, you definitely should do that. Another one that we like is a repository. Okay, nobody drool. These are all like the rule sets that are like out there, like created by teams, people, all kinds of entities, if you will. Some of these, again, which rules you use is up to you. But if you are, you've been using the same ones, I would definitely recommend trying different ones. Like we've picked a select couple that we always run. Like I think our favorite quick one is it one rule to rule them all, which is the older one, right? But then if we want to run some of the larger ones, it's like, okay, the NSA dive rule set was a pretty common one that people use, but that's like 300 kilobytes, I think, in size. A lot of these that are in here, they're like a couple megs. So the word list better not be too huge because you're going to run into, it's going to run for a couple weeks. But nonetheless, really great repository of all the rules in one place, right? So you don't have to hunt for individual stuff. Passphrases, because passwords are becoming longer, so 14, 15, 16 character requirement, there is already somebody who compiled a whole bunch of sources and gives this to you. So again, I thought about it, I'm like, oh man, I need lyrics, I need movie names, I need actor names. Like, wait, somebody already did it. Excellent. Saves me time from doing this. So this is an it string, yeah. So he provides you also like two smaller rule sets, which I'll cover in a little bit, but basically the first one puts things in between the words. So it removes the space, adds a space, adds an underscore, whatever. And then the second one is basically like a best64 append things to the end of the phrase. Really good resource, already precompiled for you. And you can tell like where we got all the stuff from. And we've had really good success on some of the longer passwords with this stuff. But instead of the second smaller rule, we chose some custom ruling to add things outside the basic stuff that was like, 1, 2, 3 special character stuff like that. That no longer really works if the person's already making a longer character, it's going to be something a little different. But nonetheless, resources are out there, right? So that's collecting them on the web. Now, if you want to grow your own ingredients, right, it's not difficult. It does take time. So if you are trying to not spend time, right, if you're like me, I generate tiny rule sets. So like I have a rule set that's basically involving digits from 1900 to 2100. Anybody? Oh, bless you. Can anyone guess why 1900 to 2100? Yeah, retirement dates, because I've seen a lot of like 2055, 20, I'm like, what the hell are these? Oh, it's like, oh yeah. You know what I mean? It's all there. So all I do is like, hey, one small rule set of like, hey, can you like, use the toggle rule or something like, hey, can you toggle like 1 through, 24 or whatever, and then append that. So you're using two tiny rules, and you're applying that to whatever word list you want. And I guarantee you, if you apply more than one rule set, and you got to be careful because once it exponentially increases the timing. So if you use larger rule sets, it goes really high. So that's why the smaller ones are better. You can also generate custom masks, custom rules based on tools like Pack, right? It'll give you the output if you already have a password list that's in-house, or even if you want to use the one that's like HashMob or anything like that. It just gives you the stuff, and then you pump it out, and then you can literally rerun it, and you still get new passwords. Automated mask generators, that was another one that's like mask processor or something like that. If you have specific things you want to do, it's pretty easy. Like, give it a try. Like, it's not experiment with things. That's all it's all about. It's just, hey, what if I do this? Like, what will happen? Like, don't do things that's going to take like a week to find out. Do it in like small doses, right? Like a small couple rule sets. If you do a couple, like you can do like more than 2. Like I think I maxed out at 5 rule sets all in one attack. They're all small, so they're not crazy, but it like keeps just mangling and mangling further whatever word list you have or password list, and I guarantee you'll start getting new results because we definitely started getting more. How to gather ingredients. I was donating blood, and I just saw a post-it, and I looked, and it's like, oh, okay. Password for, I guess, the people who test your blood. eBay is another example. That's for like more wireless stuff. But if you want to start adding custom lists just like from like public data, you can. More specific use cases again, but this one is like, yeah, they just pop out in the wild. Post-it notes from your pen test. Don't forget to add those. You can build out your own, word list from easy stuff. So here's an example of how you start cooking. So if we take RockU, right? It's like 130 megs. It's been around for, I think it's been around for more than a decade at this point, or not, but it's been around for quite a while. So what I did with it is like our first attempt at experimenting with things is I chopped it all up from 0 to 32 characters. So pretty much like segmented it as much as you want. So it goes into, it also goes from left to right and right to left. Like it mangles the heck out of it. So did that. I mean, there's an explanation of what it does on the Hashcat utilities site. But basically what you get is about a gig big word. You can call it a word list, but it's just your mangled RockU password list that's all mangled up. So what do you think I did with this, right? You can run rules on it and you'll get new passwords, but you can also just smash it. So 2 RockU salads together. And then you'll get really long passwords because the strings are basically like doubling in size, right? So stupid stuff, right? But hey, we're getting passwords out of this, so does it really matter if it like sounds stupid? No. So let's get creative. I mean, combining rules, right? So we run the basic rules. Like there's a quick test, so run like a small rule set. I start combining my years, special character. So you can do statistics, right? People append things to the end. Sometimes they do prefix. That's like the majority of it. And there's usually, if it's a longer passphrase, there's 2 words in the middle, right? So 2 or 3 rule sets, you can say, hey, specific things like, hey, do this, this, and this. But again, because you're not building giant rule sets, you're doing really small ones, but then you're just combining them. So it just makes it easy for you from naming perspective. So you can tell it like toggle, update, insert specials, insert, years from 1900 to 2100, stuff like that. Combining salads, that's my favorite. Just smashing up chopped up password lists. You can even feed that into rule sets. So standard out is your friend in Hashcat, so you can pipe all the output. It's going to be slow if you're going to do that, but just if it's a smaller rule set, it might be pretty good. I love loops. So on pen tests, I love for loops. I know that's pretty old and like it's been around for a while, but like password guessing, logins, share enumeration, I just for loop things. So I for loop my Hashcat to run certain things for testing. You can use the same stuff on Linux, I'm sure. It's just, I'm used to Windows. I do a lot of stuff on Windows. So for loops on Windows works great. Sublime. So I don't know if anybody else uses Sublime as like a word editor. Notepad++, whatever you want to use. I mess edit things, right? So like, 50,000 lines at once, you want to change something. Like you want to basically do what a rule does, right? And you want to change all 2s to 5s and save that. All of a sudden, you have a whole new password list to try and actually do stuff. And that was a simple example. Like you can append or prepend or do something else to it. And it's all just like mass edit it. You can, again, run Hashcat to do the same thing. I'm just a Sublime nerd, so I just edit things on a text document. The sandwiches. So when you're smashing things together, right? So like I said, the combining 2 salads, don't forget like toppings on it. So if you do a small rule set, if you throw in some, spices in there or whatever goes on the top, you'll start seeing that even if you rerun all your old hashes that you already have, So we have like an old stuff that would like things that haven't cracked over the years. Once like every half a year, once every year, I'm like, you know, let's just try this. Like throw them in, and it's like we found some really interesting ones. Becoming ungovernable is like basically combine the heck out of pretty much different styles. Work for every type of hash type, right? For certain ones you can use word lists, but for like NT, NetNTLMs, Kerberos hashes, we basically just combine a couple things. So hey, you wanna, you know, do a 1 and then a rule set on it, or hey, you wanna do like a -6, output that out and then rerun it with something else. So the quick attacks are always great, but this is again just experiment with it, just have fun. Like try combining things, try mashing things. It's like all the tools are out there, right? There's nothing like preventing you from doing this, right? You don't have to code, you don't have to generate things. You can. There's things that generate you know, word lists, mask, everything for you. So give it a try. I mean, honestly, if you give it a shot on your old hashes, I'll have my contact info. Let me know what pops for you, because our longest password that I think I have in my list is over 40 characters. And that wasn't like a Prince processor attack or whatever, like something crazy. It was literally like one of these combination things where we were smashing things and then we just rule setted it. And it was like, it was a keyboard pattern if anyone's interested. So somebody was clever enough to do like the English alphabet twice and then add something to it. So that's the longest password that we've seen. Here's some other secrets, not so secret things. If anybody noticed about my GIFs, I do watch anime, so a little bit of a nerd here. Combining, you know, the year range, right? Replacing like the Sublime thing is I replace specific characters, like hey, all the zeros or the third character replace with this. Or if you want to do, hey, maybe I want to replace every first A in the word with something else. So you can basically generate new word lists that are not real words, but when you run rules on them that are already generated, you'll start getting new hits. Client addresses. That's a good one. If you do pen testing, I think maybe with exception of like 2, we started finding that street names are not in some of the lists. So there are lists with street names, city names, what was it, counties, townships, stuff like that. You'll be surprised actually how many people use like just the office address for setting up some of like the service accounts passwords. Man, feed it any kind of pen test you do. If you want to feed it DNS names, host names, usernames as the word list, I'm not gonna lie. We had I think it was like is that a healthcare? Yeah, it was a healthcare client. We did user as pass. This was last year in Q4. I love Q4. User as passed 60 times. It was a huge environment. It was like a large healthcare client. User as passed. We were like password guessing. Like we can't get in. I'm like, dude, this can't be that hard. It's healthcare. Just user as passed guess like 60. I was like, all right, feed that into the cracker. And then we found all kinds of other variations of just like username plus weird stuff. So again, wouldn't be in any of the other dictionaries you just scraped. So want to build your own? Hell, dump all the DNS names, host names, usernames from your other stuff. Try it. Yeah. Again, pay attention to patterns. Analysis tools out there basically give you a really good idea of like masks and some of the patterns, but like, as I was talking to you actually earlier today, some organizations tell people, hey, use a passphrase. And the passphrase is like word, and then append something or do something else to it. But the last purple team I did, it was color, animal, color. So they're pretty long. But then as soon as I saw one, I'm like, let me try for the hell of it. Let me try other colors and just build a list of colors. Anyone know there's a lot of colors? I was like RGB, and then like, okay, what else we got? And it's like, I forget what site I pulled up, but I think as a guy, I only see like maybe 10 colors that I know of, but there's a lot out there for naming convention. For us, just so you know. And then animals, I was like, all right, give me animals. I think like, I just pulled like a list of common ones, and I was like, yeah, purple, fox, green, what was one of the colors? I was like, what is that? That's a color, but it was like something weird, and then like dog, and then another one, right? So it was like, you almost need to be a human to kind of see it. I'm sure you can script to kind of figure that out, but some of the analysis tools don't give you that, right? They don't see that as a pattern. So just be aware, like if you see one, my best one that we did like 98 hash crack rate on like an NTDS was for university, and they used the user, like it was like the username, which was like first initial, last name, and then like their ID, which was 6 digits. So as soon as I saw a couple, I was like, well, what if I just do, you know, like letters, the mask, right? And it was like, whoo, just start printing stuff out. So stuff like that is, again, it's a human thing. So just look at the passwords, just like scroll through them. It doesn't have to be, you know, difficult to kind of see some of them. Yeah, passphrases, again, we see a lot more of that. And again, those sandwich attacks where you're doing word lists or password lists and smashing them together, whether it's 2 salads or anything else, has gotten us a lot of goodies. And when you don't need to crack, I mean, if I can pass or relay the hash, if it's net data until, you know, SMB signing still disabled in 2024, awesome, I'll relay. If you can't, then you go to crack. But again, just because I like cracking, if I can avoid it, I'll do it, right? So don't make it too hard on yourself. Sous Chef joins the chat. ChatGPT, everybody loves AI, I know. It's great, it's smart. I wrote an analysis thing in probably like 2 to 3 hours, and it corrected all the mistakes that it made. I made no mistakes because I was just telling it what to do. So I take no responsibility. It will tell you, I was interested in like, hey, what is the most like common third character in all these passwords, right? The analysis tools don't actually have that built in. So you can expand your analysis capability just by telling it like, hey, I want to know, take all this, you know, take all these passwords and tell me what position, you know, an exclamation sign is most popular at, right? It could be helpful for writing rules or doing masks and stuff like that. So again, you don't have to have any coding skills. I literally was trying not to like correct or do anything on my own. I was just giving it prompts. I was like, hey, take this file, analyze it, output the stats for me, like for top 500 passwords. And you can, again, you can modify, play around with it. The code that I wrote, again, I didn't write it. So I'm not, I can give you the prompts that I used for this, but it's pretty easy. And if it's not working, you tell it why. Like it will tell you why it's not working. So 0 skill. So if you didn't listen or didn't read some of the stuff, there's tons of resources out there, right? All the tools are like, if you just look through GitHub, even if you don't look at the other ones, just look through GitHub, you'll probably find something similar that you can use as your starting point, right? Mixing up current resources, right? If you take RockU, it's been around for ages, you can repurpose it and make it a salad if you want. Rock salad, that's what I called it. It was kind of cringy, but it works. It got us more passwords than we were running with just RockU. The list is like 10 times bigger, even though they're not real people passwords. Once you throw rules at it, it's great. So for everybody who's here, grab those resources that I presented about, start cooking, I know. And then, you know, hit me up if you actually start getting some passwords. If you rerun some of your old stuff and you start seeing success based on either the word list that you find or try the salad thing. That's the easiest one. If you do end up cracking stuff, let me know about it. Right?